The Cambridge Tech Podcast is supported by Rathbones, a leading provider of individual wealth management services to private clients, entrepreneurs, charities and professional partners. For more information, please visit rathbones.com. The value of your investments and the income from them may go down as well as up, and you could get back less than you invested.
Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
I'm Faye.
And I'm James.
So James, how's your week been?
Yeah, pretty good actually. I've been out and about again. So we went over to see the computer science department at the university.
Right.
So thank you to Catherine and Helen for their hospitality. And I also had a really good conversation this week with Emily Stoner, who works in the University Careers Office. So we're just trying to connect students to opportunities with Bradfield companies. And I've done no less than 4 podcast guest planning interviews. So there you go. I do some things for the podcast.
Wow, that's brilliant. I've got a question for you. So you interview people before you put them on the podcast?
We're professional, Faye. But that also implies that you don't.
Well, no, I don't, because I know the people that I'm inviting on, I guess.
I think it's nice to give our guests comfort that there's a structure before they come on and answer any questions they might have, so.
Oh, you're good. I think that should be your full-time podcast job, not your full-time job.
Well, it has been this week. Are you going to pay me accordingly as well?
No, absolutely not. I have to see real turnaround, real change.
Oh yeah, that's not going to happen. Right. Shall we have my annual review maybe privately rather than on the podcast?
Yeah, I don't believe in annual reviews anyway, so you're really out of luck.
Okay. Thanks for your support.
It's all right.
What have you been up to then?
Yeah, what have I been up to? So most of my time this week has been spent on this uber big website project. So honestly, I've got wireframes and text and layouts coming out of my ears. But I did manage to still get out and about. So Monday, I went to a Chamber of Commerce event where skills and net zero were very high on the agenda. I went to a Cambridge Network event on Tuesday where Peter Cowley was presenting again. He's now on book tour. So we've done the launch and now it's full on book tour. Thursday, I went to the Impulse programme. So that's kicked off again this last week for the 2024 cohort. And I do 2 regular slots for them. One obviously on marketing and comms and brand and everything. But the one I do at the start is how to network. So I got to meet everyone and give them some of the little hints and tips of how to network well. Because actually for some people, it's quite uncomfortable and knowing where to start. So I just give them a few.
I'd say. Yeah, not some. I'd say a lot.
Yeah, so I just give them a few of my little secret tips.
Interesting.
Yes, that was my week. So let's move on and talk about the news.
Yeah, so first up, we have Riverlane. As many will know, Riverlane are a local quantum-based computing trailblazer. They've been chosen by the Defence Advanced Research Projects Agency for Phase 2 of the Quantum Benchmarking Programme. In the project, Riverlane is working with top-tier universities like the University of Southern California and the University of Sydney, as well as national laboratories such as the Los Alamos National Laboratory, to identify important benchmarks for practical problems, especially in the fields of plasma physics, fluid dynamics, condensed matter, and high-energy physics.
And still in quantum, researchers in Cambridge, fountainhead of key DNA and genomics discoveries for more than half a century, have won up to $3.5 million to investigate the potential of quantum computing to improve human health. The team from University of Cambridge, the Wellcome Sanger Institute and EBI aims to develop quantum computing algorithms with the potential to speed up the production and analysis of pangenomes, which are new representations of DNA sequences that capture population diversity. Their methods will be designed to run on emerging quantum computers and is one of only 12 programs worldwide chosen for the initiative. The program comes, and a little bit of history for you, 21 years after Sanger played a lead role in finalising the Human Genome Project, and that in turn followed 50 years after Crick and Watson announced the discovery of the double helix in a Cambridge city centre pub.
Investors from China and Hong Kong have backed the $21 million Series B round for Cambridge-based CM Bio, Beijing-based Basildon Capital, and founding shareholder CN Innovations Holdings Limited from Hong Kong are to invest $10 million and $5.5 million respectively. The new money will enable CM Bio to expand product development and scale the organisation across key global markets to meet increased demand for organ-on-chip solutions.
So at the other end of the spectrum, we have a new business that has been set up that's operating globally out of Cambridge. It's been formed by entrepreneurs David Newble and Mark Gilligan to identify opportunities for growth at young tech bio ventures that need guidance and finance to grow. The duo, interestingly, came together to buy the instrumentation business developed by Fluidic Analytics, which is now in administration. David says he and Mark have identified a market for growing young companies with promising core technology into global players by focusing on the value of the proposition before they have built bricks and mortar, as they say, and perhaps moved too far too fast.
And finally, this week, the government has announced the launch of a pilot scheme that will provide entrepreneurs with advice on AI regulations. The AI and Digital Hub will see regulators including the Competitions and Markets Authority, Ofcom, the Financial Conduct Authority, and the Information Commissioner's Office share information with businesses to help them navigate the UK's regulatory environment. The pilot, which is being supported to close to £2 million in government funding, will last for 12 months. The government will then assess the long-term viability of the scheme. The AI and Digital Hub will also serve as an opportunity for businesses to provide feedback on regulations. Right, so that's the end of this week's news. On to this week's episode, which is also news in its own right. We saw the launch of UK Tech Week this week, and because of that, we thought we would invite Stuart Clarke on to tell us more. So, Stuart, thanks so much for taking the time to come onto the podcast, especially in what must be a really busy week for you. You're the founder of UK Tech Week. Tell us all about the inspiration behind creating that.
So for the last sort of 9 years or so, I've been running the Leeds Digital Festival, and that's an open platform event that we have for 2 weeks in September with usually about 250 events. And we also have a sort of mini fest in April, which is this week. And over those 9 years, I've helped a number of other tech weeks, digital festivals around the country get established, and sometimes on a more formal basis, such as being on an advisory board for the likes of festivals in Halifax, Manchester and the North East, or an informal basis. Well, I have a few calls with people and a couple of those events that I've been helping over the last year or so have got established this year. So Glasgow Tech Week and Basildon Creative Tech Fest as well. And as part of that, it was like, how do we make sure that everybody gets a chance to know each other? And, we promote as part of these digital festival, we'll help and other events around the country, such as Birmingham Tech Week and Tech Week Humberside. So we thought, well, why don't we bring together people on a more formal basis and encourage them to collaborate and get together and shout out about the talent and innovation that we can find right across the UK. And that's not just the bigger cities like Leeds, Manchester, Glasgow, Birmingham, but those smaller, really creative hubs such as, Plymouth and Lincoln and Lancaster, where there's some really interesting stuff going on. So we thought, let's bring everyone together over 1 week, call it UK Tech Week, to really reflect what's going on across all the countries and the regions of the UK. And just to help shine that spotlight, get that collaboration going. And also, as well as just a week, make sure that throughout the year, we're keeping the spotlight on all the interesting events that are happening every single month, and try to encourage people to collaborate, share speakers, share events, and just keep shouting about what's going on across the whole of the country.
Yeah, I mean, it is such a vibrant area, isn't it? So it makes perfect sense to kind of centralize, pull things together a little bit. And you mentioned, so actually I was looking on the website earlier on, and, you mentioned a few regions there, but Plymouth and other places didn't actually appear on the list yet. So I think that this is possibly one of those can of worms that now you've started it, it's just going to keep going. And and going, isn't it? Just looking at a few of the tech weeks that are on, I know this last week alone, you've been doing work obviously in Leeds as part of the UK Tech Week activities. Glasgow have been live. We've got Halifax and Bath coming up in May, London, the North East in June, Cambridge, woohoo, in September, and on the list goes throughout the year. So it's like, it's so vibrant. I guess my question to you is, are you seeing things that are different from city to city, or is it just all, it's all about any kind of tech?
Absolutely different. I think one of the reasons why tech festivals and digital weeks and everything keep growing is because they truly reflect what's going on in their region. For example, Tech Southwest, which is involved in UK Tech Week, and they've got an event in Plymouth this week, and they represent a number of organisations like Digital Plymouth and Tech Exeter and Software Cornwall. So to make sure that the content of those areas really reflect the companies and the people that work in those areas. I mentioned Basildon earlier. They put together a creative tech fest because there's lots of companies in that sort of creative / tech world. And if they put an event on, say, about fintech, it probably wouldn't reflect what's going on. There's not many fintech firms in that area, but by focusing on creative tech, then that works for them. And we see that all over. And Tech Next in the Northeast, it's their second year this year. They've come back even stronger, and that reflects across different cities and towns and areas in the northeast of England. So there's lots of stuff, interesting stuff going on in VR in Gateshead, lots of stuff in the gaming world in Middlesbrough. So they make sure that their content reflects what's going on in the area. And then, it's easier, it's never easy, but easier to get that collaboration going and making sure that, showing off the strengths of your particular area.
When you mentioned Creative Southeast, they've got quite a large government-backed programme to promote what they're doing there. Do you see any correlation for where there's government funding for the tech sector, or just the business community wants to run it? Is there any activity around that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a steer from different government bodies. Whether it's things like the Green Infrastructure Bank, British Business Bank, Innovate UK, there's a sort of steer, and particularly from the DBT, I think it's called this year, Department of Business and Trade, and that focus on exports. But I think the real successes come through when it's ground up. And so people who know their area, know the types of companies, know what they need, know how to promote themselves. It doesn't always work when it's someone coming from outside of an area and sort of plonking something down that they've done in 10 other places. It's really got to reflect what's going on, and that's how you get the longevity, and that's why people will come back year after year, because they see something fresh, see something that's really relevant to them, their companies, their jobs.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, when we think about tech startups, capital is obviously super important in terms of fueling their growth. So how important is the investor audience to both UK Tech Week and, the local individual city and area festivals? Are you seeing good engagement with the investor community? Are they getting involved?
Definitely. I think all the events, tech weeks, digital festivals, etc., that I know of, there's always a good sprinkling of events around investment, whether it's raising your first pre-seed from angels, or much further down the line, Series A and B. And it's a real good opportunity for investors to get closer to the local communities, get a good feel for what's going on in the startup world. Certainly Leeds Digital Festival, in our main event in September, there's always 6 or 7 and often more events that investors put on, or founders networks. And we have a little mini-fest in April, and one of the events last night was a reverse pitch where 4 different investors from an angel group right through to a much sort of largest Series A were pitching to a room full of founders, and we were given quite a hard time at some of the questions, but it was good. And again, it gives investors a good idea of what's going on, and it gives the founders really good access in different events. So a founder can meet 20 investors, an investor can meet 100 founders at these events. And also that education piece, it can be quite daunting if you've never raised before. So, being able to access sort of 6 or 7 events just over a fortnight is really important.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like about the program as well, because obviously you're focused on the weeks and you focus on, you know, the investor, the startup, all the different communities within it. But you're also looking at building those collaborators too. So, you know, companies like Tech Talent Charter or organizations like Tech Talent Charter, Startup Coalition, UK Tech Advocates, those types of people as well. So I think it's really refreshing that you're trying to pull together the initiatives, the campaigns, and the different organisations. Are there any that you could particularly highlight for us?
You're exactly right. What we've tried to do is not only just bring the tech weeks like Birmingham Tech Week and Glasgow Tech Week together for that collaboration. It's really important to get the sort of backing and support and those wider networks of organisations like Tech UK and UK Tech Advocates, and that's really important. And I think, again, they're all doing slightly different things. You know, there's a little bit of an overlap here and there. But, for example, the Startup Coalition is very firmly focused on startups and particular policies and how the whole startup network and can lobby government and things like R&D tax credits. And they did lots of great work last year with the whole Silicon Valley Bank piece. UK Tech Advocates, and again, they're really strong in different regions of the UK, just, again, banging the drum. And increasingly globally as well. So, you know, it's just great to have those networks. Nobody has a perfect network, but the more people we can bring into this sort of UK Tech Week, you know, the better we can try to really, truly reflect what's going on across the whole of the UK.
The rules of business and society have changed, and Mishcon de Reya stands at the forefront of this change, championing the innovation ecosystem at the heart of Cambridge. Our expertise is advising innovative companies at all stages of their life cycle, from startup investment right through to exit. We advise founders, entrepreneurs, management teams, and their investors. Discover what you can do with the law of tomorrow today at mishcon.com.
I saw a post from Ollie Barrett during UK Tech Week this last week, and I thought he was his usual cheeky self and asked this question about, if we've got all these tech weeks, you know, why do we need a UK Tech Week? And I thought he gave such a great answer about, you know, not everyone is as connected as we are, for example. And so it's about giving people that visibility and those opportunities to join the dots. And I thought that was a really good quote from him.
You know, Ollie came along to compare our launch event in Birmingham on Monday, and as ever, was a real star. Just really is so good at getting stories out of people on the panels and the speakers. It really made the whole event flow. And it's right about, you know, Ollie is a super connector. You know, he knows virtually everybody, but not everybody has that network. Well, nobody has Ollie's network. So, you know, trying to bring people together in this sort of semi-formal way during the UK Tech Week. So if there's someone in Glasgow, you know, it could be a supplier, a partner, a customer, a member of staff based in Norwich or Lincoln or Lancaster. You know, how do we put them together to just try to accelerate that network for everybody? Because collaboration is the key. There's somebody somewhere who's got the key to your issue. Let's bring them together.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking of articles, I saw a really interesting post from Matt Robinson of Tech UK on the UK Tech Week website. And you know, he was looking at the next generation as part of that blog post and drawing parallels between, if we're in the fourth industrial revolution, you know, drawing parallels back to the first industrial revolution and the legacy, I guess, of those innovators and entrepreneurs, you know, the people like Cadbury, Chamberlain, Salt, you know, having streets named after them, investing in the local community, building model villages, you know, in Cadbury's case, and becoming MPs. You know, so really that spirit of innovation, but also really being socially conscious and giving back to community. And I think that kind of chimes with some of the things we talk about a lot, about this lack of role models for the next generation. You know, who are our role models in UK tech? What are your thoughts around that? And you know, that kind of idea from Matt?
I think one of the things, you know, if you ask somebody to name three famous tech people, it'd probably be all American, and one or two of them might be dead. So we don't have that sort of legacy of tech in the UK and probably across Europe as well. So I don't think we'll get too many towns and cities named after tech entrepreneurs yet. But what we've seen across the north, and I think it's very similar across the whole of the country, is that as people are making money from tech, they're putting more of it back. And it's not just the money they put in, maybe investing in new startups, but also putting their time and energy into new projects, joining boards and just giving people the sort of benefit of their experience and sort of grand wisdom. So I think we've still got a long way to go before we have plenty of household names in the tech world in the UK, but I really see some really positive steps on that. So hopefully, instead of people making money and then buying an island somewhere, make the money, invest it back in, and become a real true role model and inspire the next generation to do their own thing.
Absolutely. I think that's a great call for people. So I've got a question for you now, a normal, logical question, and then a silly fake question, if you don't mind. So The first one is, what makes a good tech week? You've done quite a few of them. We're only in Cambridge on our second one. So what do you think is like best practice? And my silly question is, are any tech weeks actually a week long?
I'll come back to number two. So I think what makes it a good tech week, and I touched on it earlier, it's about being relevant to your community. I mentioned Basildon. I think if they'd created a Basildon FinTech week, probably wouldn't be successful at all. But because they've gone down the creative tech route, we'll see that success. It's relevant to people. There's more people and firms working in our organisation. In Leeds, even though it's open platform and sort of self-selecting, we have lots of events on data, lots of events on health tech, and they're always full, we're always busy because we have lots of people working in those two sectors. Probably there's almost as many people working in Leeds in data and health tech as there is in London, which is obviously the biggest tech sector. And that works, and I see that all around the country as well. The stuff that's going on in Birmingham, mentioned about things like VR up in the northeast. So play to your strengths of your local tech sector. As for whether any tech weeks last for a whole week, yeah, I know some that are 2 days long, and I know some that's about a fortnight long. I think we sort of swerved it there by calling ourselves Leeds Digital Festival, so we can be very flexible with dates. We started out being a week long, and I think our third year we moved to 2 weeks. So I'm going to keep a much closer eye on now, just to mark all the dates to see if there's actually one that's exactly a week long.
Yeah, and I'm kind of being daft, but equally, if we want to engage with future generations, then they're at school during our normal working week. So actually, I know in Cambridge, we have the Friday that's dedicated to the next generation of tech employees. And so we've got Cambridge Science Centre, Form the Future, really taking a lead on that. So I think that's really important. But actually, doing stuff over the weekend is probably not a bad idea either.
And so with our main festival in September, there's always a couple of events during that sort of middle weekend. For example, KPMG put a Kids Code Club on, and there's a few other things as well. And a few evening things for organisations like the Head Partnership, who encourage sort of 14 to 18-year-old girls to get into tech, so they'll do some stuff in conjunction with schools. And it's great, you get an afternoon out of school and get to visit some sort of really nice places and hear some inspiring stories. So, but you're right, it's just important that we're not just 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Otherwise, say that next generation just won't see the amazing stuff that's going on.
So, Stuart, you might have seen the recent announcement that there's now a collaboration between Manchester and Cambridge around tech innovation and investment. But we have a lot of people in the Cambridge cluster listening to the podcast. What would be your message to them? The theme of collaboration is coming through really strongly from this conversation. So, what would your rally call be to the companies and individuals in Cambridge in terms of the opportunity for them to reach outside of Cambridge and collaborate across the whole of the UK?
They come to Leeds, and then Birmingham, and then Glasgow, and then Edinburgh, and then Plymouth, and Cardiff. I've seen that collaboration between Manchester and Cambridge and the Angel Networks, which is just absolutely brilliant because, Cambridge is obviously a very successful tech sector, but no matter how successful, how big one area is, there's more success, there's more collaboration and more opportunities elsewhere. So it's just great to see those sort of formal partnerships happening. In Leeds in June this year, there's an event called Climb 24. It started last year. And again, that's a sort of 2-day focus on investment. I think there's 300 or 400 investors coming from all around the country. I'm pretty sure Cambridge Angels are involved in that. And I think that's just that constant collaboration. And, this was one of the driving force behind UK Tech Week. How do we make sure that everybody who should know each other does know each other?
Thanks very much for that. I feel that we should let you go shortly, but we kind of need to get you to plug Leeds a little bit, seeing as you've got UK Tech Week, but you've also got Leeds. So tell us a little bit about what you're planning to do in Leeds. What sectors are you focusing on? Any specific companies you want to shout out about?
Yeah. Well, I made this thing a few years ago, Leeds Tech now.
Stuart, just for the benefit of those listening in, it's like an underground map, is it, framed behind you on your wall?
If anyone from Transport for London's legal department are listening, then it's not it's not an underground map. It's a visual representation of the Leeds tech sector. And we did that for a bit of fun a few years ago. There's I think it's about 300 firms on there, but there's about 4,000 tech firms in the sort of Leeds area. So we sort of highlighted a few. There's plenty of data and health tech firms on there, lots of great, interesting startups. One of the startups I'll mention, and the founder was at this reverse pitch I was chairing last night, Georgina Fairhall, or George. She's running a company called WAC, Work and Communications, and it's all about helping hourly paid workers to track their pay, just to make sure they're getting paid. She came up with a statistic last night that sort of 45% of hourly paid workers don't get paid the full amount. So she's doing some really important stuff there and raising money at the moment. And there's lots of success stories like that in Leeds. And that talent pool of startups we have now that's just grown and grown over the last 10 years, it's just been great to see, keeping more startups in the city after graduating from the sort of 5 universities we have in Leeds.
Yeah, I was going to just ask, how active are the universities in the entrepreneurship scene there? Are they teaching entrepreneurship? Are they keeping students in Leeds after they graduate?
Much better. Say 10 years ago, we probably lost most startup founders to London, because that's where every other startup founder seemed to be, and that's where the access to money was. I think the tech sector and the universities are much better at working together. Leeds, Beckett and Trinity have got some really interesting internal startup networks, and give people space and a bit of funding and build those networks around them. And then what we found over the last few years, particularly sort of post-pandemic, where perhaps access to capital is easier because we can do more things online, or there's a willingness to do more things online. I think it's that recognition that Leeds is a great place to build a startup, because there's that big tech ecosystem. And I think Leeds has got better, and I can see this for lots of other towns and cities and regions around the UK. We've got better at telling our story and, telling people what we've got, and the breadth and the talent and the innovation that's going on in Leeds. I've seen that in Manchester, I've seen that in Birmingham, I've seen that in Newcastle and elsewhere. So I think we are getting better at saying, hey, there's talent and innovation in every region, every country of the UK.
Yeah, and thank you so much for all of those insights. And certainly I think what you're doing with UK Tech Week is really going to help to propel those messages and to get people to work together even more than they are doing already. So you can definitely count us in as a partner. We're very happy to share our audience with anyone who's interested in tech in Cambridge, the UK and beyond. So thank you so much for your time today, Stuart. And I think you probably are going to deserve a well-earned rest after this week.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that was a great initiative, and we're obviously pleased to help promote and support that. As people won't be surprised, we're both big connectors and very big on collaboration, so happy to be involved.
Absolutely. And there's also been lots going on with our own Cambridge Tech Week, so let's give everyone a quick update on that. Cambridge Tech Week and University of East Anglia held an event in Norwich this week at the Sainsbury's Centre for Visual Art, and it was actually timed to be part of the UK Tech Week. Guest speakers at Norwich included Martin Frost, Professors David Maguire and Sheng Qi of UEA, Hannah Smith of Anglia Capital, Dr. Jerry Wu, Tuss Park, and our lovely friend Dr. Soraya Jones of UEA and Hobbiton College. And the event was supported by Mills and Reeves and Norwich Research Park. So it was really great to see the region expanding out and getting more interaction there.
Yeah, and I think there's a call for contributors, which is open until the 13th of May. So if you're interested in speaking or being part of a panel or fireside chat, then do get your submission in. And for programme guidance, please refer to the Cambridge Tech Week website.
We're lead partners, so Cofinitive's lead partner of Innovation Alley on the 10th of September takes place on the Tuesday. So I'm really excited to see some great progress in that part of the programme. The call for exhibitors has opened and it runs until the end of May. So we're looking for a raft of innovative startups. I'm not really sure. Do you call a whole load of startups a raft? But I just have. So we're looking for loads of startups. And actually about half of them, because of partnerships and sponsorship, quite a lot of those slots have already been allocated. So we've got still some space. We've got space for about 10 scale-ups. Fewer companies have already applied. And also a small number of the larger tech companies too, that if you put them all together, they should give a really great showcase of the diversity of tech innovation. So you've got until the end of May to get those applications in. UEA are also lead sponsor here. They're joined by co-sponsors Appleyard Lee and a host of other programme sponsors too.
General registration for delegate tickets also open this week. So get in early with super early bird rates for the first 50 registrations. Get booked in as soon as possible.
Indeed. And finally, Cambridge Tech Week is also hosting Tech Nation's Rising Stars regional pitch competition for the East of England on Monday, the 13th of May, hosted here in the Bradfield Centre. So do look out for tickets if you're interested in attending that event.
Yeah, thanks to Chris Bruce for providing these updates, and do keep up to date by following the hashtag CamTechWeek on social media and, of course, on their website.
Perfect. So that's UK Tech Week, Cambridge Tech Week done. That's it for this week. We will see you next week when we'll be talking to the winners of the Spring Angels at Essex competition.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It will really help others discover the show.
Local community projects consistently face shortfalls of millions of pounds. At Cambridgeshire Community Foundation, we work with businesses and individuals to provide grants to local community-based projects making a difference across Cambridgeshire. To join us in shaping a better county for all, please go to cambscf.org.uk.